Chapter 3, Water. W-A-T-E-R. The next weeks were an adventure for Helen. She liked the sewing cards and the kindergarten beads that Annie gave her. She liked their long walks through the cool woods. They rode horseback together. Annie led Helen's pony. Whatever they did, Annie spelled letters into Helen's hand. When they petted the cat, Annie spelled cat, C-A-T. Helen quickly learned to imitate Annie's fingers. She could make the letters for cake, C-A-K-E, when she wanted a treat, and milk when she was thirsty. Helen is like a clever little monkey, Annie wrote. She has learned the signs to ask for what she wants, but she has no ideas that she is spelling words. Helen enjoyed the adventures with Annie, but she did not know that the stranger was her teacher. She was very unhappy when Annie tried to make her obey. Annie did not believe that Helen's parents were right to let Helen always do exactly as she pleased. At mealtimes, Helen walked around the table. She dipped her fingers into everyone's plates and gobbled whatever she wanted. Annie made Helen sit in her own chair and eat from her own plate. Helen was furious. When Annie gave her a spoon, Helen threw it on the floor and kicked the table. They spent a whole afternoon fighting while Annie insisted that Helen fold her napkin. Mrs. Keller was upset. "I cannot bear to have Helen punished," she said. Annie was firm. "We must make Helen know we love her," she said, "but we must not let her think she is different because she is blind and deaf. She must behave like other children." And so here they are at the dinner table, and there's Helen reaching into other people's plates, and her teacher Annie is trying to get her to obey. Helen's bad tempers went on. Once she locked Annie in her room and hid the key. Captain Keller had to put a ladder up to Annie's window and help her down. One morning during her lesson, Helen was especially bad. She slammed her new doll on the floor and broke it. Annie was too tired to go on with the lesson. Her eyes ached. She took Helen by the hand and led her outdoors. They stopped at the pump for a drink. Then something happened that changed Helen's whole life. Helen held her hand under the spout while Annie pumped. As cold water poured over Helen's hands, Annie spelled in her other hand W-A-T-E-R, water. A new expression came to Helen's face when she spelled water several times to herself. Now this, I looked it up, is how you spell water. It's, I don't know if you can see my hands. Let me see if I can turn this way. It's W, this is A-T-E-R. And so this is what they were doing over and over again. W-A-T-E-R. And over again onto Helen's palm. And finally, Helen connected that those signs on her hand actually meant water. Then Helen pointed to the ground. Annie quickly spelled G-R-O-U-N-D, ground. Helen jumped up. She suddenly realized that she was understanding words. She pointed to Annie, and Annie spelled T-E-A-C-H-E-R, teacher. Helen never called Annie by any other name. Then Helen pointed to herself, and Annie slowly spelled out H-E-L-E-N-K-E-L-L-E-R, Helen Keller. Helen's face broke into a wide smile. It was the first time she knew that she had a name. Helen and Annie were both excited. They raced to the house to find Mrs. Keller. Helen threw herself into her mother's arms while Annie spelled M-O-T-H-E-R, mother, into her hand. When Helen nodded to show that she understood, there were tears of happiness in Mrs. Keller's eyes. All the rest of the day, Helen ran about touching things, and Annie spelled the names. When she touched her little sister, Annie spelled B-A-B-Y, baby. At supper, Annie rubbed her fingers. No wonder my hand is numb from spelling, she smiled at Captain Keller. Helen is trying to make up in one day what other children have taken 6 years to learn. When Helen went to bed that night, she kissed her teacher for the first time. Annie wrote, "I thought my heart would burst with joy." Helen herself said many years later, "I was born again that day. I had been a little ghost in a no world. Now I knew my name. I was a person. I could understand people and make them understand me."